All right. Hey, everyone. How's everyone doing? Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Hey, Sarah. It just started. There might be a little bit of delay, so sorry if I'm responding slowly. But how's everyone doing? Where's everyone joining from? Okay. So, welcome to the first, I guess, of hopefully many Wix Fix streams. I finally now have a computer that I think will allow me to actually stream. So that'll be nice. Before I was using a computer that couldn't really handle streaming just like this, let alone be in the editor at the same time. So now I actually have something that can handle it. Hey, Sarah from Spain. Okay, nice. What time is it there? It's 11 a.m. for me. Hope it's not too late for you. And while we're waiting for more people to join, I figured we could go ahead and show you what we're going to be building in today's stream. This is a section that was suggested from one of you guys, so I figured it might be kind of fun to do like a test stream and build this section here. And you can see as I'm scrolling down, the content here is, the design is kind of highlighting a new the different options here, and then below here the paragraph is also changing on scroll as well based on what is highlighted. Now I will say I have not tested this, so we're just going to be kind of doing some trial and error probably, but it should be fun, so let's do it. So first things first, let's go into Wix Studio, and I'm just going to create two black sections to kind of be our top and our bottom, and then I'll have a section in the middle that we're actually going to build this right here. Okay, so for this, let's go ahead and kind of break this down really quickly. Right over here, we have our images, so they just kind of scroll. That's pretty easy. Up here, we kind of have this section that's kind of sticky, right? So we kind of need a left and a right hand side grid, and the right hand side needs to be sticky. Okay, the right hand side then has kind of like a section title with three main categories, and then depending on which category is kind of highlighted, I guess that shows the content here. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and start building the initial structure. What I want to do first is maybe add like 5% padding on the left and right. Maybe we'll go ahead and do that to the top as well. Okay, inside of this, let's add a container. We can stretch it, and we'll apply a CSS grid. If you are new to the channel, I typically like to use CSS grids and stuff like that. Just because cells don't really work for me, at least the way my brain works, so it's easier. And I am getting a little bit of a recommended bitrate thing. Is the quality good? And 6 p.m. in Spain, oh wow. That's not too late, that's not too bad. But thank you for joining, Okay, now YouTube's saying I have good connection. But just let me know if you guys are running into any issues with the quality in the chat, and I'll try to fix it if I can. But now that we've added our container and added the CSS grid, what I want to do is split it into a 1x2 grid. So we have our left and we have our right hand side, and then let's go ahead and add like a 5 VW gap. Okay, so that way our content isn't touching each other. Okay, Then for this, I want to just remove the background color from the container, just like that. So now we have our left and right hand side, just like with the section we are building here. And the first thing we can maybe do is tackle the images, because that'll probably be the easiest part of it. So all I'm going to do is add another container to this left hand side. And what I want to do is go ahead and we'll set, should we stretch it? Yeah, we'll just go ahead and stretch it. And we'll go down to CSS grid and we'll do 3 rows. And let's see what kind of gap they had. They had about like a, let's just say 64 pixel gap. Something like that should be fine. And now let's go ahead and set the height. Now I will say, if we take a look at the composition here, the images are perfectly square. And they're maybe taking up 1/3 of the screen overall. Maybe. So what I want to do with this container here is I kind of want to set this to be, this right one over here to be like 2FR. Something like that should do. That way this 1FR is 1/3 of the 2FR. Okay. And then with that, I want to grab this container here and I want to set this to VW. And that's going to tell us that it is 28.3. Actually, you know what? Let's do pixels. Let's do 363. And what I want to do is go ahead and do that with this one as well. So I'm going to grab the parent container. So now we have both of these containers set to 363. And then what I want to do with that, now that we know 363, I want to come over here and set each one of these rows to be 363 as well. So we're going to go to scale and set this to 363. And that should basically turn this into a square here. And we'll go ahead and do that for each one of these rows as well. 363. We'll grab this last one and we'll set this to 363 as well. Okay. The last thing we need to do here is we're going to add our images. So we'll grab an image, place it into this top grid cell, stretch it. And I'm going to go ahead and do that for each one of our rows here. So I'm going to go ahead and apply it to our second grid cell and come down to margins and then just set all of these to 0. And we'll do this one last time for the bottom grid cell. Okay. And just like that, we have our images kind of complete. We'll just remove the background color from the container. And so once we kind of preview it, this is kind of what we'll have. And you can kind of see how that basically matches this one over here. Okay. Now let's go ahead and talk about this section here. What we're going to need to do is we need to have a section kind of with a top grid cell and then a bottom grid cell. And we need to make this container sticky, right? So what we're going to do is come over here. I'm going to, oh, I'm in preview. So what I'm going to do in this right grid cell, just add a container. We'll stretch it. And we want to apply a CSS grid, split it into a top and bottom half. And we'll say like 64 pixel gap here, just to make sure that no content kind of touches each other. We want to have that spacing there. Okay. And actually what I want to do is unstretch this. What I want to do first actually is turn on the advanced settings. So I like to use the Option I keyboard shortcut. However, what you can do is come over to the 3 dots and just turn on advanced settings. And what I want to do is just set this to be 100% width, and I want the height to be 100 VH. And we'll just go ahead and stick this to the top. Okay. And just like that, we are good. One thing I will say is we might want to add maybe like 5% padding on the top and bottom. And you know what? Let's go ahead and do that for this one here as well. Actually, let me see this. It's 5% padding. we'll set 40, let's set a 64 pixel padding on this one, and then we'll do that for this one over here as well. 64 pixels. Okay, perfect. And what that's going to do is when we set this container to be the position type from default to sticky, what that's going to do is we can leave the offset set to 0. However, the content is not going to be stuck at the top of our screen, which we don't want. All right, we're always going to have that 64 pixel gap that we set there. Okay, perfect. So first thing I want to do with this container is just remove the background color. And now we can go ahead and start building the different categories here, okay? So what I want to do first is I want to grab a container. Let's just go ahead and set 4 rows in this. So we'll do CSS grid, custom, we'll do 4 rows, just like that. And let's see what kind of gap they have. They have a pretty decent gap. For now, let's just say we'll do 42 pixels. And just like what I did with this container behind it, I want to turn on the advanced settings, set the width to 100%, and I'll just send it to the top left, okay? In here, what I want to do is just grab a title. I'm gonna call this one our values. We can set this to be hug. We'll also maybe make this like 24 pixels. Just kind of stick it in the top grid cell. We'll send it to the left, align it to the center, and then let's remove the height just by setting the top row to max width or max content. Sorry. Okay. So now we have body, consciousness, and emotions. Okay. So let's grab a new title. And actually, now what I want to do first is remove the background color. Let's then add another container inside of this. We'll stretch it, make sure it's in the middle grid cell or the second grid cell, and remove the background color. And the reason we're doing that is because we are going to just duplicate it, and it'll make it easier to do it this way. So what we're going to do is just add a title. If we want to, we could set the width to be 100% after we turn on advanced settings. And again, I just use the keyboard shortcut. Sorry, that's just habit. But what we're going to do then is we're going to change this one to body. And what I want to do with this is let's go ahead and set like a lighter background color, right? Then we can duplicate this one, and we can set this one to be our dark color. And what we want to do is just place it right over it. That way they kind of overlay each other. But what we're going to do is grab this text element, the black one, and we're going to come down to the adjust, and we're going to set this to be 0% opacity. Okay, so when we preview it, we're just going to see the gray one, and we're not going to see the black version of the text because it's hidden. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're just going to grab the container. Let's duplicate the container. We're going to put it in the third grid cell, and we'll just remove all the margins. Okay, let's duplicate it again, throw it in the bottom grid cell, and again, remove all the margins. Now for this one, we're going to change this to consciousness, which I'm a terrible speller, so I'm just going to try to copy it. I guess I can't. Okay. Well, I'm just going to try to spell it as well as I can. So we're going to grab this. This is embarrassing. I'm just going to drag this off to the side and spell it manually. Okay. Okay, then I'm going to copy this text. I'm going to go down into our container and grab the second text. I'm going to press edit text and paste it in. Okay. And last but not least, let's go ahead and add this text here to emotions. Again, we'll copy it. Let's paste it into the next one. Okay. And honestly, I kind of want to lower the amount of space in between the grids, so maybe we'll do like 28, something like that. Okay, so now when we go ahead and preview the website, this is what we should see, and I think that looks pretty good so far. The next thing we need to kind of cover is down here, we need to have our content that's going to change. So for example, if we are on body, we're going to have text for body. As we scroll down to consciousness, we're going to have text that changes to consciousness. And then last but not least, once we scroll down to emotions, we'll see emotions text as well. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and actually add a multi-state box. So this video or stream, I guess, is going to include a little bit of code, but it's going to be pretty simple. Multi-state boxes might seem a little daunting, but they're pretty easy. So what we're going to do is go to Layout Tools, Multi-State Box, and we're going to add this right here. We're going to add it to the bottom. Okay. For now, let's just go ahead and stretch it. And then we'll grab this and bring it up a little bit. Actually, let's grab the multi-state box and unstretch it. And we'll just turn on advanced settings and set this to be 100% width. And we'll align it to the left and top. Okay. And inside of this, all I want to do is just add a little paragraph. And with advanced settings, let's do like 80%. We'll align it to the left and top. And we'll grab the multi-state box and remove the background color. Okay, let's go up to body. And we'll grab this text. Oh wait, we can't copy it. Bummer. Okay, so what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to go to lorem ipsum generator. And I'm just going to grab some lorem ipsum. Okay. And what I want to do with this container is if we turn on advanced settings and go down to advanced CSS grid, we'll just set this to max content. So it's not going to be tall. And what we're going to do is go to multi-state box, we'll manage states. And what I'm going to do is switch over to this state, or actually we want to delete this state. So we'll press the 3 dots and delete it. And then what we're going to do is just duplicate the state 2 more times. So let's switch over to state 1. And let's grab some different lorem ipsum, just so we can visually tell that the content is different. Okay. And then let's grab the multi-state box again. We'll switch over to the last state. And again, we're going to choose some different lorem ipsum. Just placeholder filler text if you don't know what lorem ipsum is. Okay. What I'm going to do is make them all the same size, just 3 rows. Okay. All right, so what I want to do is I want to grab this bottom row. And I want to set this to max content. And then what I want to do is set the top row to auto. However, we need to come back over here to the height and set this to 100 VH. Okay. And basically what that's going to do is auto is going to basically fill in all the available space. And this is set to max content. So since this is minimized and our height of the container is 100 VH, auto is going to fill in the available space that we have. And so we should be left with this right here. And I will say, because we're on the free plan right now, this little banner is pushing everything down by 50 pixels. So it's going to look a lot closer to the edge than it really is going to be on the live website. So just keep that in mind when you're working in the editor. Things might not be as fully as it seems if you're working on the free plan. But now let's go ahead and think about how we are going to trigger the effect where the text elements kind of change states, and how we're going to change this content here. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, what if we actually just make the entire thing right here the multi-state box? That actually might be the way to do it. As I mentioned before, this is going to require some trial and error, but this just gave me a good idea for how we can actually change this and actually make it a little bit easier. So with that said, actually I'm going to unstretch this and let's just duplicate the section just so we have this as a backup. But I'm going to hide this one here. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we'll just delete this for now. What I want to do now is actually create a multi-state box for the entire right hand side. Okay, and this is what we're going to and let me think. If we actually stick this into a container, so we have the multi-state box in a container, then we add the 64 pixel padding, and then our multi-state box is here. And then let's turn on the advanced settings for the container. We'll set the width to 100, the height to 100 VH, and we align it to the left and top. And with the container, we'll set the position type to sticky with 0. So now the multi-state box here, we'll turn on advanced settings and set the width to 100%. So if you're following along, we kind of did what we did before. So let me re-show this section. This section is our kind of messed up one, but we have our main container, and then we have inside that container we have our content, right? And that's kind of what we're doing down here with this one. We have our main container that we set to 100% width and 100 VH height, and we set the sticky position to. So if I just kind of preview this, you're going to see how this looks here. Okay. And then inside of this gray box, that is where we're going to kind of put our content from now on. So what I'm going to do is set this height. Let's turn on advanced grid. And let's turn it to a percentage. We'll say 100%. Or not, let me see. That didn't work. Okay, let's set this to... Let's set it to 500 pixels for now. Inside of this, let's add a container. And with this container, we're going to split this into a grid. We'll have a top and bottom. The bottom is going to have our lorem ipsum in it. So I'm just going to copy and paste this down here. And we'll just send this to the bottom left. Perfect. With this container, let's also just add our gap. So we'll say 64 pixels. For this bottom grid cell, let's set this to max content. And then for the top one, let's set this to auto for now. And what we want to do here is basically grab this container here. And I'm going to copy it and just simply paste it here. Okay, we want to make sure that this one is in the top grid cell. We'll align it to the left and top. And for all of these other grid cells here in this container, we'll set it to max content. And then last but not least, we'll grab this container and set the background color to 0. So now you can kind of see that we're kind of creating the same effect. The only thing that we kind of need to do is somehow get the get this row to basically fill in the rest of the space. Because if I go ahead and grab the container, I mean, I guess I can stretch it out, but that might not be the most responsive thing to do, right? Because if I go to the container, you can see this is 814. However, on different screen sizes, not everyone's going to have the same height, right? So I might have to think, like if we do auto, that's just going to shrink it to there, which I guess is not the end of the world, if I'm being honest. But it's not exactly the same effect that we had over here either, right? because this, if you're just now joining us, this is what we're trying to recreate. So let's see here. What's the best way to do this? Maybe we can set this height. I mean, it'd be nice if we could set the height to 100%, right? But that doesn't work. Oops. Let's see here. Ooh, I think I messed them up. Okay, let's try like 55. And honestly, I think that'll do. For now, we'll kind of test the responsiveness a little bit later. But for now, let's just go ahead and move on. The first thing I want to do with this one is set the opacity of the black text to 100%. Or actually, what we could do is just set the text color here to black. And we actually don't need these anymore. Okay. Because then what we're going to do is we're going to grab the multi-state box. We're going to manage states. And if I just go ahead and delete the second one, we can then duplicate these other ones. So with state 2, what we're going to do is change this text color back to this gray. We'll grab consciousness. We'll set this to black. And then we'll just grab a little bit of lorem ipsum again. Oops. And we'll change this text. Okay. And last but not least, if we go ahead and grab the multi-state box and switch to the last state, what we're going to do is set the color of the text and change the emotions to black. And then last but not least, we're going to grab some more lorem ipsum and we'll paste it in. Okay. So now what we need to do, now that we have all of our states configured and designed, now what we need to do is actually go ahead and set up triggers to actually change the, change the multi-state box, right? So if we take a look at this website here, and our example here, we'll see that the R values, body and consciousness and emotions. Body is here by default. You can kind of see the other image here already, but then it's like as soon as we hit, as soon as like the section becomes sticky and it switches to consciousness, and then about halfway down with this image and this image, it switches to emotions. Okay, so now we just need to figure out how to get that to trigger. And what I think the best way to do that would be is using kind of like a hidden container. So what I want to do is, with the section selected, I want to add another container. In this container, we're just going to set this to be 30 pixels. And we'll turn on advanced sizing for now. So we'll set it to 30 pixels. And for the height, what we're going to do is set this to be like 100 VH. Actually, we don't even need it to be that high. Let's do, not 500. Let's do like 50 VH. However, what we're going to do is we are going to set the top margin to be 100 VH. So basically, what that means is when we start scrolling down, when this section becomes sticky, that is when we're going to see this container here, right? Or that's when it's going to enter the viewport. So with that in mind, what we can then do is set some code that when this enters the viewport, the multi-state box changes, right? So let's go ahead and do that. What we're going to do is go enter coding. Fantastic. We just click this and press start coding. It's pretty easy. And what we're going to do is we're going to stay on the home page. Okay. We can close the coding panel and just stay in this one right here. And I'll try to zoom in for you guys if that helps. But all we're going to do, all we're going to do is we're going to grab this container here and we're going to say on viewport enter, and it's going to add this right here, right? On viewport enter, we want to grab the multi-state box. So if we grab the multi-state box here, oh wait, this is for the old section, so let's go ahead and hide this. We don't want to grab this one. For this multi-state box, which is called multi-state box 1, what we want to do is change the state. So let's actually name the states real quick. So let's go in here. We'll go to the top one here. We want to manage states. We'll rename this one. We'll edit ID. We'll say body state. Okay. I'm not going to spell this whole thing out, but I'm going to say cons state. Then I'm going to say emo state. Okay, so now we have our 3 states here. So when box 1 enters the viewport, what we want to do is grab the multi-state box 1. We're going to change state. And we're going to say we want to change it to the cons state. Okay, so if I just go ahead and preview the website really quickly and wait for everything to like fully load, okay, you're going to see it switches for us. Perfect. I will say what we need to do now is set it up to where we need to set it up so that way when we go back up, it switches back up to body. So how can we do that? That's where things get a little tricky. Let's see. Because I mean, what we could do is say, if we grab box 1 and say on viewport leave, sorry. We could go back to the body state maybe, but I think that's going to cause an issue once we want to switch over to the emotion state. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. I had to cough. But let's test it out and just see if this works for now. We're going to scroll down, switches to consciousness. Great. If we go back up, it switches back to body. Okay, so that works. But now we need to switch from consciousness to emotions, and we need to make sure it doesn't switch from consciousness back to body as we scroll down. Okay. So let's go ahead and figure that out. But what we want to do now is for this to switch to emotions, what I think it might be kind of cool to do is if we go ahead and split this into a second box like that, maybe what we do is add another container inside of this to the bottom row and we stretch it. And I'm going to set this one to be like a darker color just so that we know it's there. And what we want to do is kind of the same thing what we did with box 1, right? And what we're going to say is on viewport enter, we want to change the multi-state box to emo state. Okay. And let's kind of do the same thing that we did with the leave as well. So we're going to say on viewport leave, we're going to switch back to the con state. Okay. And actually kind of what I want to do, instead of box 1 here, I kind of want to add another box here. We'll stretch it, make sure it's just in the top one, and maybe we'll set this one to blue. And this box is called box 35. So instead of box 1, we'll say box 35. And actually, let's be real. We want to make sure that we know what we're doing here. So I'm going to say box con state. And I'm just going to, or actually I'm going to call this one con state trigger. Okay. So that way we kind of know what we need to put here. Okay. And then for this box down here, we're going to say emo state trigger. Okay. So that way we're not dealing with box 34 and box 35 because we don't really know what that is, right? But we know what the trigger is because we're changing the state to this, right? So let's go ahead and test it out now. I just kind of want to see where we're at. Okay, so once it's fully loaded, let's go ahead and test it out. It switches, great. And it doesn't switch. It doesn't switch yet here. Interesting. Okay. Let's try this. Let's try adding to this container. Let's add 100 VH to the bottom. And we'll see what that does. So what we want it to do is switch to the emotion state. No, it switches. Okay. So you can kind of see the issue that we're running into a little bit. Interesting. Okay, so I have another idea for this. Let's grab this container and let's actually add a third row. Okay, for this container here, let's stick it in the bottom row. For the blue container, we'll stick it in the middle row. And we'll just make sure we kind of unstretch and restretch these. And then last but not least, we'll grab this container and place it in there. And then this one is going to be body state trigger. Okay, and then for the code, we're going to get rid of all of these leave commands here. We're just going to leave the enter. Okay, so when con state enters the viewport, we want to enter con state. When emo state trigger enters the viewport, we want to change it to the emo state. And now we just need to do basically the same exact thing for the box trigger. So what we're going to do is just say on viewport enter. We want to change the multi-state box. Multi-state box 1. We're going to say change state to body state. Okay, and then if we grab this container, let's go ahead and set like each one of these heights to VH for now. And then let's go ahead and change it to like 50, 50, 50. Let's just see what that does. Okay. Now it switches to consciousness here. Then it switches to emotions. Okay, so it switches to body. Switches to this, but then as soon as this one enters the viewport, it doesn't switch to consciousness. Or switches from consciousness to emotions. So let's try to figure that out. So emo state trigger. That's this one. Oops. An emo state trigger enters the viewport. Multi-state box 1, change to emo state. So that should work. Let's go ahead and just redo this one completely. So we're going to say this box on viewport enter. I'm going to grab the multi-state box. Let's say $ multi-state box 1. Change state. Emo state. Okay. Let's just see how this is working. It's actually confusing. Maybe what I should do with this one is maybe add let's see what that does. I didn't do anything. Okay. Sorry guys, a little trial and error. Let me try to see what's going on. Emo state trigger. Okay. Multi-state box here. Let's grab this. Multi-state box, change states. Emo state. Ah. I have it set to capital. That's probably what it was. Okay. So scroll, scroll, scroll. There we go. That was it. If we scroll back up slowly enough, it switches back. Okay. That works. The only time it kind of gets a little glitchy at this point is if you're like switching, going up and down really fast, you can kind of see how it messes it up. But you can just go back down and go back up and it kind of fixes it. But yeah. The next thing I kind of want to cover here is we can actually go ahead and turn off coding now because we don't need it. But the next thing we kind of need to cover now is see how the images kind of scroll up way too fast now. What we wanted to do is we want the images to kind of scroll as we scroll through these different options here. Okay. So let's try to figure that one out now. So what we're going to do is maybe what we do is we set it to sticky. But if we grab this container in the background, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this one the scroll container. Scroll container, and then this one is the images. We'll say images. Okay, so with the scroll container selected, what we want to do is we want to grab or go to the effects over here, animation and effects. We'll go to scroll, and we're going to add a scroll animation. We want to animate out. We're going to select move. We don't want to animate itself. What we want to do is animate the images container and kind of reset it. So make sure we set move. And we'll press adjust. We want to move up, so let's go ahead and set the angle to 0. Distance, let's say um, let's say 100 VH, just to see what that does. And what we want to do is from the animation area to be from 0 to 100. And what we're going to do is go ahead and press preview, and let's kind of see what that does. So it kind of sticks, and it didn't do anything. Interesting. Or maybe it was too fast. Let me see. Sticky top. Let me try this really quickly. I'm going to set this to 100%. And then I'm going to manually set all of these to be 363. Again. Okay. And then sticky top 100. Okay. We'll also just kind of make sure that the column is set to 363 as well. Well, let's just see if that did anything. Probably not, but okay, that's what did it. Because the container was stretched, it was kind of creating that effect, like, or it wasn't working as intended. So I unstretched it, basically set the width to be 100% for that container, stuck it to the top, and then set the rows and columns to 363, which is what we initially had, I guess. So now we kind of have this effect here. The only thing that would make this a little different than this one over here is that the image stops moving. So maybe what I chose for the scroll effect, if I go ahead and grab that, maybe I made the number too high, right? So instead of 100 VH, let's do like 70. Okay, so now let's go ahead and see what that does. Let's see where it stops. It's still, I can kind of see where the scroll effect stops and where it just continues to scroll because of the sticky position. I don't really know if there is an easy, quick way to fix that, but let's see what we can do. Maybe we set this to like 85. See what happens there. Or maybe it's that with the scroll container, there's too much to the bottom. So maybe we set this to 0. Whoa, well, slow down. It just like randomly kind of speeds up, right? This is a little weird. Oh my gosh. Let me see. How can we fix this? Let me try going down. Okay, I actually do kind of like that. Kind of slow. But it does like this weird thing where it's like speeds up once it hit emotions. Like once it switches to emotions. It's weird. Um, hmm. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Mm, let's see. Say 85. And let's come over here. Let's see what this does. Okay. I don't really know what's causing the kind of speed up at the end. Right here. I'll be honest. It's literally right when it hits emotions. It just speeds up. I'm not really sure. That might be that literally might have to be something that we kind of like check after stream, and maybe I'll make like an updated video or something once I figure that out. Let me just try this again, see what happens. You know, that effect actually doesn't look too bad. It's just not quite the same. Like it's kind of cool that once you hit the last one, the images kind of fly up and then you can scroll down. I do kind of like that, but it's not quite this aesthetic where the image stays. Does anybody here that's maybe watching know the reason? Otherwise, I might have to check this after stream. Just trying to think. If you like this effect though, the only other thing that you would need to do is with the scroll container selected, what you want to do is come down to adjust, and then you would set this to 0 opacity. So that way, when you go on and press preview, you don't see the scroll container, but you still get the cool effect of it, right? That's the last thing that you would need to do once you kind of figure out how to build it and stuff like that. But I think that is going to kind of end today's stream. I will try to create a much more guided tutorial on this here in the near future, and maybe try to figure out a way to have the images kind of stop around here maybe, and then you scroll down. But for some reason it's not really working, and I don't know, it'll probably come easier to me off stream, you know how it is. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed the stream, please go ahead and give this a like. You know, I kind of like streaming, but you know, I'm just now getting a computer where I think it's feasible. But I'd be interested to hear your thoughts and what kind of stuff you would like to see in future streams and stuff like that. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. Let me go to big screen. But yeah, thank you guys for hanging out, and I hope Yeah, leave a comment down below if what kind of stuff you would like to see in maybe future streams. That would be really cool. But yeah, hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. Peace out.